Payback. So, as you can see, I'm playing on an Xbox. Or not. Anyways, I'm playing on an Xbox, okay? I've got an Xbox One X. I've used the enhanced 4K experience at home, as well as away in regular 1080p to view this game and play this game. So I played most of it on 4K on a 4K TV, sitting way too close to it, but still getting a great example of how 4K rendition can help with these games. And now that I'm at a different location on a small TV using 1080, sitting about the same distance away, there's not much of a difference, I have to say. Maybe it's just my personal view, or just my Xbox, or just my television. I don't know. But here is the honest truth about Need for Speed Payback, as far as I can tell you. So, I started off with this game probably about a month and a half late. I got the game for a Christmas present and got it shortly before Christmas. So that should give you a time frame as to when the game came out and up until I played it. So I was behind the curve. I know that people have reviewed this game. I know that people have talked about its flaws. I'm here to back it up, mostly. It does have flaws, though. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. These little loading screens and the initial loading screen are absolutely ridiculous. Completely and utterly insane. When we're talking about modern AAA games like this one, even racing games, which tend to not get as much attention as other games, seriously, the long load times? Come on, EA. You're already famous for releasing games before they're finished. Are you going to continue to do that with my racing games? Because Need for Speed is a long-running franchise and something that I respect. Even 2015, I still have things to respect about that game. But that's a different video. This one, excuse me, this one starts off and throws you into a long loading screen, and then a cutscene, and then another cutscene, and then you can race. But then you think you're racing, and it throws you into another cutscene, more voiceover, all kinds of stuff. That kind of irks my nerves a little bit because, well, it's not really meant to be a cutscene game, in my mind. It should more be, okay, the storyline's happening as I'm racing, and it does do that from time to time. It'll throw some phone calls at you, and you can hear the woman on the radio and all this other stuff. So let's talk about purely graphic perspective. If you notice, when I loaded into the game, cars perfectly loaded, landscapes loaded, even the render, as far as it can go out to render, is loaded. You could see on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a heat wave rendition right there, so that the power lines look like they're moving, as they would in real life. That building way in the back that's being built right now rendered in perfectly fine. What didn't render in immediately was the textures for the ground surrounding me. That took about 30 seconds to render completely. And even then, at that point, it's still not the greatest. Okay, I see some tire marks and stuff. There are some cracks in the pavement, there's some textures in the wall. I'm at a gas station, But it took way too long to render things up close to me, which is kind of ridiculous, because why would you care about rendering something that's way far off that I could barely see? I guess since it's 4K, but I'm not broadcasting in 4K or recording in 4K. I don't understand what that's all about. Anyways, so we're going to start off with that. The second thing that I want to talk about is the drive style. So right now I have a regular race car, a race peg. And it drives reasonably well. This one's not the fastest in the world. I haven't souped it up completely yet. And I haven't learned how to drive, apparently. But it's good. And I find that the race spec cars actually drift better under my control than the drift spec cars when I can drive them. which is kind of crazy because I do have a drift spec car that's a Corvette, and I have the same Corvette as my drag car, and then I have a Camaro ZR1 or whatever they call it as my race car, and the race car will drift better than the drift car will. And maybe it's because I don't have it all the way tuned up. I don't know. But that kind of irked my nerves a little bit. So let's go ahead and go up here. I have a little bit to show you. I think it's right around here. Let's just jump right to it. So talking about graphical perspective and stuff like that, just different things here and there. I noticed that on the highway at one point, it's this way, there's actually some grass that sticks up into the highway. Here it is, right here. Look at this. Okay, so the texture for the grass wasn't removed when it went underneath the pavement here. And it's not just like one small spot. It's pretty far. It runs for a decent distance here. And there's grass sticking up through the pavement. So, EA, I wish they could tell me what was going on here, because I know that these guys know their shit. EA is a big, big company, and they've got a lot of AAA games under their belt. And they've made some pretty damn good games in the past. And they've made some pretty damn shit games in the past. Battlefield. Anyways. So, let's talk about that. So we've got Battlefield, Battlefront, and Need for Speed now. We have 2015 and this one right here that came out last year in 2017. 2015 was good. It was pretty well polished. It had a good storyline. It had good characters. It was a typical Need for Speed style where it was just absolutely insanity going on at every turn, and you know that could never happen in real life, which is okay because it's a video game. That one wasn't necessarily supposed to simulate real life. This one, however, was. This is more of a simulation than 2015 ever could be, or will be. So, if you're going to make a simulation game where it's supposed to be realistic, the cars are supposed to handle realistically, except for, sorry, front-wheel drive cars drifting every corner. That's not realistic at all, right, EA? Anyways, realism was obviously something that they cared about. So why are we getting textures of grass sticking up through the textures of pavement and being animated at that? I'm just saying. Possibly what could have happened was they could have had a time crunch. You never know. These games always have a time crunch. There's always that one time zone where they're like, hey, listen, you have till December to do this, that, and the other thing to the developers. And then a month later, in February of that year, they go, sorry guys, we said December last month in January. We meant more along the lines of June. You need to be done. So they're like, holy crap, and they got to really, really cram all this stuff into a short, period and get it done so they could possibly overlook textures like that. It's relative to the size of the game and the size of the map, that's extremely small and insignificant. But when it pops up consistently, that's the problem. And I've noticed a couple of other spots around the map that happens to. Now, as far as the drive and everything like that, they got that down pretty good. It's a typical Need for Speed. I like the fact that we have nitrous still. That's always a good thing that Need for Speed brings to the table. Obviously, Need for Speed has always had a deal with Porsche or Porsche, depending on what you like to call it. But they've had a deal with them constantly, so we always get decent cars as far as they're concerned. Whereas other video game franchises sometimes have to pay off Porsche to get their cars in, or don't even have Volkswagens in them. Horizon 3. Anyways, so altogether, this game's actually pretty good. The drivability is nice. The terrain is actually pretty good, except for the fact that it loads in extremely slowly, and I'm not entirely sure why. I want to blame the game engine for that one, but I'm not a real tech guy. I don't know all the stuff about it. I pretend to, when I'm at parties and stuff like that, but I don't know shit. It's a pretty decent game overall. The storyline's good, albeit it's very predictable. The good guys win in the end, and Tyler goes through and beats all the bad guys, and some of the bad guys come back. The bosses come back. Excuse me? Are we talking... Is this Need for Speed Carbon? I don't think so. Speaking of which, EA, I'm giving you a hard time, but this is still a solid game. I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. But the next game that you work on needs to be a remake. I think we're all going to be on the boat with this one. Remake Need for Speed Carbon. Do that shit in 4K. Remake it, remaster it. Throw some new actors and actresses in there if you have to. I understand that you're not going to get all the old actors on board to redo the cutscenes, but do it again. Do it right. Again, that was a beautiful game. I want it remade and remastered, and I want it to be expanded upon. I want the city to be larger, maybe even more cities. Put more canyon duels in there. Put more canyons in there. Put more cars in there, but keep the old ones in there too. Because I remember that RX-8 was my baby. Oh my god. It was my baby from the beginning to the end of my first playthrough of that game. That RX-8 stayed with me. I never sold it. It was painted a crazy ass color. It was slammed. It had some stupid rims on it. I had the auto sculpt body kit on it where it was like all flared out and crazy. The wheels were like 43-inch rims, but it drove like a dream. And it was my favorite. Keep that. Let's get the customization back, because in this game, lacking quite a bit on the customization spectrum there. There was no auto sculpt at all, and the number of bumpers and different things that you could have per vehicle were limited for some vehicles that obviously you didn't care about enough to add it as many as other vehicles. And yeah, I get it, you know, you have to have certain parameters, and there's memory restrictions on a disk space and everything like that, but come on. This game was developed up until 2017. In 2017, we've had games that are ridiculous. I mean, hell, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2015. Okay, and that game's probably in file size about 3 times as big as this game is. And it was years before. The graphics aren't as good, but in file size it's bigger. So you could have added more to it. You can listen to me or you can't listen to me. Don't let this sway your opinion on the game. This game's awesome. I love this game. I played all the way through it. I continue to play online. I'm terrible at online. I get my ass kicked at every turn. And that's probably because I'm driving modern day cars. Everyday cars, I should say. Like a Camaro at $399 versus people are driving Koenigsegg Regeras at $399, and their car is better than mine because they've had enough time to discover and tune it the right way. Just saying. But let's do this. Everybody get on the bandwagon now. Need for Speed Carbon Remake. 2019, we'll say. We'll give them a year. You know, let's say June of 2019. Because this year, I know that we've got an EA. I'm not sure about you, because I don't really follow EA a whole lot unless they come out with a Need for Speed or something similar. But as far as racing games are concerned, the Crew 2 is about to come out, okay? I am excited AF for that. Alright, the Crew 2's going to be great. It's going to be huge. It's probably going to have the same issues the Crew originally had, but I played through that game and probably broke 3 controllers while playing through that game because it was actually difficult for me, and I loved it. It was fucking awesome. I enjoyed that so much. This game, the difficulty level kind of spiked towards the end, and I enjoyed that a lot, but we're going to stay away from that sort of thing. I will leave with one last iteration of what's going on here. Off-road. Need for Speed. EA, guys, you have terminally messed up off-road on this game. The understeer, the uncontrollable oversteer, the lack of speed off-road. And I understand you're trying to go for realism, but come on, guys. I got to a point where I would put off racing off-road races until the end of the game because I just didn't want to do them. Even though I had the BMW, I think it was the X5, which was the best off-road that I could find out there, you know, in my opinion. I had the best one. I had over 1,000 horsepower. I think it was like 1,400 horsepower in an X5, and I would top out at like 70 miles an hour in a race. Come on, guys. And on top of that, just the way the AI behaved in off-road races was insane. It was just way too much, way too quickly. And they would constantly just try and run you over and stuff like that, and then you go off a jump, and it's too much to explain all in one go. I mean, I have other gameplays back archived and stuff like that where you guys can hear me completely bitch about how bad off-road races are towards the end of my gameplay trailers or gameplay footage on this game. I rage quit like 3 times, but that's pretty much it. That's my solid review of Need for Speed Payback. 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10.